when we are building any project, first I think we greatly try to understand, like, can our buildings be timeless? Are we building for the season or are we building for eternity? Architecture is very clearly linked to our history, and we should learn from history. When you learn from history, the spirituality kind of draws in always. And so we study a lot. We try to understand, like, what are the elements that we can borrow from the past, adapt for the present, and make sure that they kind of survive into the future.
City making is not just a collection of buildings, right? It involves entire systems, city systems, ecosystems, right? Climatic zones, ecological conditions. So the landscape profession allows us to understand this network relationship at a regional scale.
Hello everyone, my name is Pooja Tiwari and I'm extremely delighted to welcome all of you to episode 11 of VC Live Season 3. If you're joining us for the first time, VC Live is presented by Godrej Value Co-Creators Club, an initiative by Godrej Locks and Architectural Solutions. GVCC is a vibrant community of over 2,000 architects and designers across India, brought together to share ideas, explore innovations, and champion meaningful design. If you haven't joined us yet, just click on the link in the chat box and become part of this growing community. Before I move forward, let's take a moment to see what GVCC is all about.
Welcome to the Godrej Value Co-Creators Club, where innovation meets collaboration. GVCC is a unique platform for architects and interior designers to merge their creative visions with our innovative product offerings. We aim to cultivate a network of thought leaders, driving innovation and excellence in the industry. Celebrate your achievements with our GV's Awards, recognizing innovative projects across various verticals. Join our community through exhibition visits and masterclasses to stay updated on the latest trends and technologies. Enjoy exclusive access to new products, special discounts, and tours of our Mumbai and Goa plants. Join the Godrej Value Co-Creators Club today. Be part of a community that values innovation, collaboration, and sustainability.
Godrej Locks and Architectural Solutions, a leading and trusted home safety business, has announced the launch of its latest brand campaign, Befikar Living Unlocked, introducing the next-gen Advantage IoT 9 digital lock. The campaign highlights Godrej's commitment to enhancing home safety through innovation with a new television commercial that creatively addresses everyday safety concerns. Let's have a look at the video.
Thrusters.
Check. Door lock check.
डोर लॉक घर का डोर लॉक किया था या भूल गया घर का लॉक फटाफट से चेक करके आऊं क्या
ले आइए गोदरेज IoT 9 डिजिटल लॉक 9 सिक्योर एक्सेस मोड्स ऑटोमेटिक लॉकिंग ट्रिपल बोल्ट और कई एडवांस फीचर्स अब घर के अंदर या बाहर रहो बेफिक्र
घर जाते ही गोदरेज डिजिटल लॉक लगवाऊंगा
VC Live is a monthly thought leadership series that brings together industry pioneers to explore the future of architecture and design. Across seasons, we have explored everything from smart living to material innovation and human-centered design. This season's theme, Future Forward, explores how innovation, sustainability, and people-first thinking are reshaping the way we live, work, and experience spaces. Today's session, Designing with Nature, Planning for Planet and People, zooms integrating nature into urban and institutional projects. We'll have an engaging Q&A at the end, so drop your questions in the Q&A tab as we go along. Let's begin by welcoming our first speaker, architect Leonard Ng from Henning Larsen, Singapore. He's one of the Singapore's most awarded landscape architects and urban thinkers. His work is situated at the intersection of nature, water, and the built environment, with landmark projects like Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park, Kampung Admiralty, and Bidadari Park under his belt. His design philosophy centers on reconnecting people and planet. And he believes cities must adapt to embrace ecology as its core infrastructure. Let's hear from architect Leonard Ng as he shares how planning with nature creates more resilient, joyful spaces. A warm welcome, architect Leonard. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Pooja, for the generous introduction. I'm pleased to be here today to give you a talk. And good evening to all the audience from Singapore. I hope you're all comfortable after work and ready for a educational session. I'll next share my presentation. Please let me know when you see it.
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
Okay. My topic today is designing with nature. And why this is important is, as our cities expand, nature has been pushed out. So I think it's important in order to make our cities livable that we need to make spaces for nature. So, we always start our design considerations with the pressures faced by modern cities in mind. As cities densify worldwide, more and more we get this situation where problems develop, challenges are apparent. For example, in this case, due to storm conditions, the flooding is more and more common. Brownfield situation where because of development is also becoming an issue. Recently, we have been inundated with really high temperatures worldwide, including very much in Singapore and in India. And biodiversity is becoming an issue because of deforestation and development. Nature has got no way to go. So our all methods of really designing for sustainability, I believe, is not sufficient. We need to look at regenerative design, meaning we need to remediate the damage that we have done to our environment. Otherwise, our world will become more and more hostile to living. So I'll start by talking about the Singapore experience and how Singapore has transformed itself because of the challenges it faced. So Singapore is a small island nation, unlike India. We are 720 square kilometers. But if you notice through the years, and it's not that far long ago, in 1989, our green cover was a lot more than 2021. It's because our population has grown from less than 4 million to greater than 6 million now. So there is greater demand for spaces for development. So I used to live when I was a young boy, I used to live in a little village surrounded by greenery. But as we grew, we moved into this, what we call housing development block flats, which are actually public housing. And we built a lot of this in the early days of our development in order to accommodate the increasing population and making spaces for industries. But if you look at this picture, it is not a very appealing environment for living. So after many decades of development, I think we reached a point where we realized that we need to improve our environment. And this is when the government came out with the policy of incorporating greenery within our built environment. So looking at opportunities wherever we find them in our three-dimensional space, on the roof, on the side of the buildings, and on the ground, in order to create spaces for nature and for greenery. And this has driven the way we have designed our physical environment since. So I work for this company called Henning Larsen. We are a Danish company. We are part of the Ramprasad Group, which is a group of 18,000 engineers and designers. And I'm the director for Asia Pacific operation. We offer architectural, landscape, and urbanism solutions. But we consider ourselves more than landscape architects or designers, we consider ourselves first and foremost as champions for nature, where we look at the best qualities of nature and try to highlight that. We try to be sensitive in the way we treat design within environments. The second thing is we consider ourselves as ecosystem thinkers. So the problem with modern day challenges are they are very complex and very multi-dimensional. So in order to be able to solve problems effectively, you need to think in terms of ecosystems and networks and how your solutions can be multidisciplinary and multidimensional. And finally, we consider ourselves as storytellers. At the end of the day, we are designing for people to build memories, for people to build relationships, right? To design compelling spaces so that you will return to them. So with that in mind, I will start talking about a few projects to showcase our design philosophy. And the first project is this little project in Singapore, which was actually an old hotel. And this is a picture of the old hotel. It was designed in the 1970s by the American architect called John Portman, right? And a few years ago, the client came to us and says, look, you know, the design is a bit dated, right? And we are not competitive anymore. Can you please help us update this design? So the idea is, how do we incorporate biophilic design even within interior spaces? And which made it an interesting challenge for us. So this was the frontage we gave them, the same reception. We were inspired by the mountain landscapes, and we did an abstraction of these mountain landscapes into this green wall. We were also told to design the interior of the hotel, which was this really old school 1970s type ID interiors. And what we did was we took it and we converted them and made it into these beautiful green landscape areas, only using real plants, energy saving lighting. On a normal day, you can hear birds singing in here. And what happens is it has transformed the place where it wasn't well used. Now is actually one of the most popular spaces. People actively seek out this space for meetings, right? To meet in groups, for lunches, for discussions. And this becomes an asset instead of a dated design. And it's now one of the most popular features within the hotel. The next project I'd like to show you is this project, and this is a project also in Singapore. This is actually a public housing project that was designed for senior citizens. So the two tower blocks on the left are actually designed for senior citizens with mobility issues. So we wanted to make this place handicap friendly, but not only that, we wanted to bring the spirit of the village into this integrated development. So kampong in Singapore, in Malay, used to refer to a village, the equivalent of village. And village, one of the core characteristics of a village is a strong community spirit. And we wanted to embed that into our design. We also considered including biodiversity as an attraction where nature can coexist in close proximity with the residents. We wanted to create a beautiful seasonal look where if you look out at your flat, you can look at, instead of looking at this hard roof, you see this beautiful green hillside. And then we wanted to embed the culture of cultivating agriculture as part-time activity for the senior citizens. But we had to do this within this very dense, built-up, integrated design. And we worked with this architect called Wohar. they designed the building, and we designed the landscape in this elevated ground plane that serves as the new village square. So if you see the users at different levels, the transport level at the basement, then there's a supermarket, then there's the food court, and then there's the day clinics, and there's the childcare center. All the users are segregated by through the vertical layers. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to make the landscape as the binder to bring the community together. And if you look at it now, the building will look different without the landscape. Likewise, the landscape will look different without the building. And I think that's the magic of this design, in that the seamless integration of these two strong elements has created something new. We have looked at how we create this landscape, and we embedded fruit trees. We embedded biodiversity trees to attract butterflies, bees, and birds. And we embedded canopy trees for shades and for cooling effect. So all the landscape design was done with specific KPIs in mind to achieve a specific outcome. We were also the water engineers, and we embed the water, working with the engineers, the building engineers, to seamlessly incorporate and integrate the water system within this dense built environment. So we, with the green roofs, we collected all the water, right? We treated it in vegetated filters. We collected in rain gardens and rain features to beautify the space. And we kept it in irrigation tanks. We recycle it for irrigation before we output it into the public system as cleaner water. And this is some of the systems you see that's functioning now. They are all gravity fed, and this happens during a storm event, right? The rain chains, the rain curtains, the cleansing bathtubs are actually phytoremediation beds used to treat the water and make it cleaner, right? And the phytoremediation beds drains into bioswales, where the plants will uptake nutrients, the nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, and produce cleaner water before it's discharged into the eco pond, where nature flourishes, right? And then it goes into the public system as cleaner water. And all this is done because ultimately the water that falls where we live is actually the water we end up drinking. So Singapore is a small country. We don't have a lot of space to collect water. So we have to depend on making sure that all the water that flows into our drains has to end up cleaner so that it takes less energy to treat. So this is part of the island-wide initiative to produce cleaner water. So this was the renderings we did during the design stage to show how this landscape feature on this terrace roof will look like. This is halfway through implementation. You see the roofs still quite bare. So if you didn't have the landscape, you'll see the roofs only. But we wanted to plan the landscape first off to serve several purposes, right? To give them a beautiful view for the senior citizens in the tower blocks, but also to shade the roof against heat and to provide a space for leisure and also provide a space for nature. But technically, it's quite challenging because we have to understand how each of these plants grow, their requirements, right? So for each of these planting beds, we have to determine the soil depth that is closely related to the species of plants that we are gonna incorporate. So this type of design is only possible if we work closely with the architects and the engineers from the start. This is not something that you can retrofit later. You have to do it from the start. Otherwise, it would not succeed. And then finally, 12 months after opening, this is how it looks like. The view is totally different now. It is green. It's no longer hard. The spaces underneath these green roofs are a lot cooler. There is spaces for the senior citizens to exercise. and for their grandchildren to play, but also it's a space where you find butterflies, bees, and birds. So it has transformed the way the citizens have used the space, right? It has really improved the quality of life. And now we are rolling out more and more of this type of integrated hub project in Singapore because of the success of this pilot project. The next project I'm going to talk about is this a project in Jurong Lake Gardens, also in Singapore, is about restoration of ecosystems. So this part of Singapore used to be part of the large industrial estate on the west side of Singapore. Due to rapid urbanization and industrialization of Singapore, we had to redevelop all the freshwater swamp forests, and this was part of the freshwater swamp forest then. So when we were approached for this competition, one of our ideas was to bring back the freshwater from swamp forest, but in a friendlier manner. We wanted to showcase a defragmented freshwater swamp forest. So one of the initiatives was to create habitats for birds, in this case, grey herons that was found there. So we create river deltas for the bird to feed, and mud flats, and we created islands for the bird to stay, and then we created mud flats, right, for the birds to feed. But we also wanted spaces for humans to enjoy nature, but without disturbing wildlife. So what we did was we layered on, we put humans on a pathway, narrow pathway that's elevated over the landscape, right? So they are confined to these narrow pathways, but we allow the birds and the animals to use the space on the ground freely. So the ducks, the grey herons, the monitor lizards, they're all moving through the space and without coming into conflict with humans. So we also selected the plant palette to mimic what was here before, swamp, lowland freshwater swamp, but displayed it in a manner that is not unfriendly, right? So that people can get close up without getting, for example, injured by the thorns. And this combination, this design thinking is very successful at deconflicting the needs of man and nature while allowing them to live in harmony. We also thought about how the water will move and behave through the season. So we work closely with the water engineers to make sure that the water can move in and out so that seasonally you see different conditions. And the fact of allowing the water moving in and out will create the mud flats that will allow these grey herons to feed. And now there's a flock of grey herons that live here and appears in this place regularly. So this was shortly after opening. You can see the green, the red boardwalk, which was seen in the rendering. The redness of the boardwalk was actually an inspiration from the red sealing wax palm that was found natively in this area. So this boardwalk actually brings people much closer to the water. Sometimes the water will move in, but you see when you're walking on this boardwalk that is full of bird life, sometimes you see otters, you see the grey herons, you see monitor lizards, and you get in touch with the nature, which is a difficult thing to do in Singapore because you're living in high rises. So these are really precious moments that build memories for future generations. This was a rendering during the competition stage, and this was a clip we took shortly before opening. And this was exactly the effect we were trying to create. We wanted to put the animals and the birds back, right, in a place where they can live freely, right, and they can fly over your head in flocks. Now this is a picture we took shortly after opening, and it is very unlike what you'll see anywhere in Singapore. We also wanted to embed an object here, an art object that will make people question our place in nature. So actually, this tree is actually made up of rebars we have harvested on site when we were dismantling the old pavements, and we made it into this beautiful tree, which is now a landmark. And it makes you question humans' intervention in nature areas. The last project I'll show you here is this, our first project in Singapore, which is Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park. It's actually a part of the widened catchment study for Singapore, where we are trying to change mindsets about the residents' relationship with water. What we did was we took this 3-kilometer long concrete canal, right, and proposed creating a natural river instead, right? But it's not just a natural river, right? It's really about changing mindsets. Instead of thinking in sectors where the canal is a part of drainage works, the park is part of the park authorities, right? And this is for the building authorities. We had to change the way we think. Now we are required to think in an integrated manner, right? Where there's no yours and mine, but it's ours. We were also given the requirement to design for climate change. The old canal was designed for 1 in 5 year storm event, but because of our climate projections, we now had to design for 1 in 10 year storm event. 1 in 25 year storm event. So we had to make sure that the new natural river we designed could accommodate the higher storm flows. We had to do extensive hydraulic modeling, and then did a lot of pilot tests. So this was before. You see the canal running top down as a straight line, and the bottom picture is actually a underground drain. We broke it up and made it into this natural, beautiful river and open drain using nature-based solutions. What we did was we tested 13 different kinds of nature, in this case, a technique called soil bioengineering, where you use natural materials to act as concrete to retain the soil and to prevent soil collapse. And this is at implementation. And this is 6 months later. Now these branches we use has grown up into bushes. And then this is 12 months later. And really the intention was to blend seamlessly with the surrounding without using concrete. And instead of the previous design, which was really a monofunctional drain that only performs the function of conveyancing, which is surrounded by fence and therefore excluded people. Now it has been converted into this natural river that feels like it's seamless with the park, right? The difference between this and that is this is not monofunctional, it's multifunctional. It can be flooded during a storm event, but during dry days, it looks like this. It provides spaces for nature. There is slow water, fast water, deep water, shallow water. There's high light, low light. And the different conditions will provide different biotic conditions for different species to prosper. So this was actually, this storm happened. It was a 1 in 10 year storm event during construction, and it fitted our modeling simulation. And then 6 hours later, it was back down to the image on the right, and people can come straight down to the park. It becomes part of the park again, right? It becomes a leisure space. But at certain times of the year, during the storm season, it gets flooded and is much wider. So you don't have to dedicate additional space for this river. We incorporated a lot of native vegetation. We found these different species of plants along the shores of Singapore, and we propagated them and use them to beautify and vegetate the slopes. We have tracked the species through the years, right? If you look at 2011, there was less than 20 species, right? But by 2018, right, 7 years later, it was close to 60 species. So it's been an amazing transformation. Now there's even more. And finally, this is what makes it special. This is what brings people back. This is what builds memories, right? Where we can coexist with nature. Nature have a place and we have a place, right? And this is whenever I bring my kids to the park, this is what gets them excited. During the COVID times, for example, when we were basically confined to our flats, the only space that we were allowed to go to were the parks. And they were really, it made a huge difference then to be able to escape to the park. And now the park is not seen as a luxury, it is seen as a necessity. So every time there's developments in Singapore, we always think about how to incorporate greenery. So this is how it looks like, where the blocks of flat are. There used to be a concrete canal. Now they're overlooking a beautiful park. So there used to be the properties now in front of this park is some of the most expensive property after the development of this river, simply because now it's a beautiful space. And finally, I have to wrap up by talking about some future trends. Right now, we are developing a food resiliency master plan for the Singapore government, where we provide spaces for high density food production, but also incorporate leisure, ecological considerations, coastal protection, and education. So this is a rendering of the educational and production facility for this food resiliency master plan. High-rise building, which is pretty common in Singapore, I think, but what is maybe unusual for especially places like India is the incorporation of greenery into this super high-rise. And we are working on several projects in Singapore that incorporate greenery at multiple levels, right? We are also thinking about how we can use landscape design and engineering to improve thermal comfort, a big topic in Singapore, and also I'm sure in India. We have over the last few years recorded record temperatures in summer, and it's made it really uncomfortable. So in all our landscape proposals, we think about how we can improve thermal comfort in all our design. We have also looked at design in the sea. In this case, a project in Maldives, where we looked at how we can remediate bleached coral reefs and make it into an attraction, a tourist attraction. We are also looking at the new adaptation of playgrounds. This was a design we did for an airport where we reimagine the future of play. This project we did with Zaha Hadid Architects, and this is really this is an island that was created for high-tech industries, for knowledge industries. But what was interesting with this island was the creation of integrated precinct-scale ecosystem services, where green, water, thermal comfort, biodiversity, car-like society, all incorporated within this design to produce this compelling urban development. With that, I'd like to end my presentation. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much, Architect Leonard, for that beautifully layered presentation, and of course, sharing the before and after, and towards the end, sharing the future trends. Thank you very, very much. Moving forward, let's invite our next speaker. From the Supreme Court of Bhutan to Azim Premji University and IIT Hyderabad, his work bridges culture, education, sustainability, and public good. He's a storyteller, mentor, educator, and cultural catalyst whose work blends context, craft, and deep humanism. Let's invite architect Ramprasad Akkisetti to take us through this journey of designing places that respect both earth and emotion. A warm welcome, sir.
Thank you. Namaste. So do I start my presentation now?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
First, initially, I'll just give a little bit of a preface to what we are going to talk. So you would have to pardon me that I may take a couple of minutes to warm up and to understand the topic so that our viewers, you seem to have a very good number of viewers, almost touching what, like 300? I think, Pooja, you've done a pretty good job. So first, let me thank Godrej, Godrej locks, something which we all grew up in childhood. Unlike the video that you showed, he forgot to lock up the house. We always remembered that we always locked our houses using Godrej. And in fact, it's a very nice kind of a memory lane that I go back when I hear the locks from Godrej. And then it's also very nice to see that you have very carefully chosen a topic called design with nature. For those of you who haven't heard this particular term, design with nature, actually is a book. It's a title of a book written by a 20th century landscape architect called Ian McCarg, who is a Scottish architect, landscape architects to be more precise. He's written several books, but this particular book, Design with Nature, which was written in 1969, caught the attention of the world for the first time, that how human beings can like design with nature. All this while during the modernist period, people were building very stark buildings and a lot of concrete. There were more buildings which were like standalone, almost trying to convey that, look at me, I'm a human creation, and they forgot to integrate design of nature or nature as part of the design. So to me, for every singular difficult problem, I would always say that look at nature. Nature has solutions for all the problems that we as human beings have created over generations, over civilizations. To me, all buildings, all architects must build with nature. It's like every building of ours should be a green building. It's like having good manners. If you're an educated, civilized person, you're expected to have good manners. Just like that, I feel that like all buildings must have good manners. That means all buildings must be sustainable and they all must be green. And one of the things in CCBA, which my mentor, Professor Christopher Benninger, who is no more, we lost him about 10 months back. He has inculcated in all our thinking process in CCBA designs, in all the architects, is that like, look at nature, be sustainable, and borrow the landscape. The word borrowing landscape means that like you need to borrow what is an element that is around you, which is a part of nature, that actually you can bring it into the building. Like, for example, if there is a view of a mountain, capture it in our balcony or in your window. If there is a view of an ocean or a water body or a river, capture it, bring it into your building. This is something like you're doing it free. You don't even have to pay for this. That is the essence of good architecture. If I always say that if you have bad architecture, have a great landscape plan to hide bad architecture. Like recently I was transferring from Bangalore airport, and I was so fascinated to see this new terminal built with bamboo. It really is a different approach, and you feel that that there is a comforting factor. Human beings always find it extremely comfortable to be part and parcel of nature. So Bangalore is a very good example. But however, as Leonard, my partner in this crime, he was talking about Singapore, projects around Singapore and in Singapore. Let's understand that Singapore is a city state. There is one particular kind of climate. It allows the luxury of having rainfall almost every single afternoon. So there's a kind of a nice feel when you go to Singapore because it's always very green, something mimicking to what we have in India in the monsoon. Unfortunately, or let's say fortunately, India is a very, very large country. It has probably the coldest place in Dras up in Ladakh area, the wettest place in the Northeast Asia, Northeast India, in a place called Chirapunji, and the driest and the hottest place in Jaisalmer. And so we are divided by many, many climatic zones, many, many terrains, with a huge, vast biodiversity. Now, when you're playing with architecture and landscape in a large country like India, I think it's very essential that I must send a message to our audience who are primarily architects that do not mimic magazines and books, and do not mimic something that you see elsewhere. I think look at your own climatic conditions, design with those climatic conditions, especially when you're designing in India, in a place like Pune or in a place like Hyderabad. Please, for God's sake, don't mimic like the creepers and the green things that like Leonard has shown in some of your buildings, because they will just last for 3 months and the rest of the time it's going to be dry. Your buildings are not going to look nice. So we need to be very careful what we adapt, how it responds to our climate, and how it is going to enhance the beauty and the quality of our spaces, right? So with this, let me start the presentation of Suzlon One Earth. At the time it was built, Suzlon in 2010 was one of the world's largest and the greenest buildings. So CCBA, for a little introduction, is a 30-year-old design firm. We started in 1995. I and Christopher Benninger and a couple of our directors who are with us, we all started with the singular motive that why don't we kind of work on each of the project that comes to us as an experiment in the lab. Can we invent something which is called an Indian architecture? Can we also talk about other than green as a parameter of sustainability? I would introduce you to two projects. One is going to talk not just about the green sustainability. I'm going to talk about what is called the cultural sustainability. And the second project, I'm going to talk about what is called economic sustainability. So now Suzlon is in Pune. It's a very large corporate headquarters for about 3,000 people sitting over here. When this particular project came, everybody talked about like how we can do a corporate building. In the time in 2010, when everybody was building glass and steel towers in India as corporate buildings, we said like, no, let's go back to board. And why don't we do what is called as, instead of a skyscraper, why don't we do something which is called as a ground scraper? So Suzlon is a ground scraper, and it was awarded the Platinum Green building and also the Terry Griha. As you can see, these certificates. And it was very difficult for us back in those days because there were no rules for the ratings back in those days. In fact, as this particular building kept on evolving, the rules kept on getting modified. So the rules and the building grew practically together as twins. Next one. Now, when I look at like Suzlon, we were looking at like, can we actually design a building that is both Indian and modern, at the same time sustainable, and can it generate energy and set as an example in the time when everybody is building these glass boxes? So we have incorporated water bodies, we have incorporated age-old iconization of Indian temples. We did not build a temple, we built into the design what were the motives that we can borrow. We built the Deepastha, which tied up all the buildings together into a central plaza, and it actually made it that like everybody could look into this space as the central space to congregate. So basically Suzlon is in wind energy company, and this is how the campus looks. There's a lot of green features which were part and parcel of the material selection itself. We had louvers, sun rays would have been dampened by adopting these louvers. We had overhangs, we had like water bodies. And then if you can see, this is how the louvers function. They give the transparency which is needed for the people sitting inside, but at the same time, it was blocking the sunlight coming into the building. And in that way, it has reduced the light that would fall onto the walls, cutting down on the ambient air conditioning temperature and thereby the cost of running the air conditioning. And all this water would circulate. All this is gray water. We were reusing and recycling the water. The building envelope had glass as well as louvers. Then we also had, for the first time back in 2008, VRV water-cooled systems that greatly reduced the temperature to almost 27 degrees. Then we had evaporative cooling. We also invented something which is called the glass cylinders. Keep going. Keep going. These glass cylinders were connected to the basement, which had almost like 3,000 cars parked. And if you can think about, usually the basements would have like a certain kind of heat trapped in them because of the vehicular movements. So we needed to kind of release that hot air through this particular glass cylinders. Now, I'll explain a little bit more about these glass cylinders, although they had like now grown up trees in them. What happens when the sunlight hits the glass, it actually like warms up, and the heated air or the warm air pulls all this air from the basement into the roof, and then it releases. It acts like something like a chimney. Also, Suzlon One Earth started, like its own, electric generation, because this became like the net zero building. We were generating power in the wind farms and then feeding into this, and that made it a net zero building. Many of the systems that we used, like we used efficient plumbing fixtures, sensors, auto walls, pressure reducing devices, dual flush systems. All these were low energy consumption fixtures. And we also used native plants to cut down on the water consumption. Some of the building kind of sustainable features were, we did use PT design, which helped the reduction of steel by almost 50%. Also, we used less amount of concrete, almost to the tune of 15%. The sizes of the beams that were planned matched the sizes of the ready plywood, which reduced the cutting and wastage. These are some of the things that we don't think about. There's a huge amount of wastage of construction material because we want to arrive at certain shapes and sizes. But when you actually plan it way in advance, your construction modules and systems, you actually can integrate what were industrially manufactured plywood sizes and glass panels and all those things. There was a natural drainage system which helped in the post-construction period. Then we harvested 100% rainwater. The treatment sewage was treated and then used for the landscape as well as for flushing. So there were too many parameters for me to go into this particular presentation. If I look at it, Suzlon, by the end of the construction, I think it garnered almost like 10 different national and international awards, which made it a very important project in the landscape of architecture in India back in those days. The client was happy. What we could design was a building that was modern, that was a net zero building. It was sustainable. It has won all the awards. It has got all the ratings, both US Green Building Council as well as TERI 5-star rating. And plus, what it made is one of the most important things, it brought happiness. The people in this particular building who were occupying in the form of workforce, they were very happy. They felt connected to India. It was an Indian building. There were motives that always reminded that they were in the country that they were working in. And also it made them feel returning back to work every single day. Now I'll quickly go to the next project. Now I'll call this project as an economic sustainable project, because this is a project which was designed recently, about 3-4 years back. This is for a factory building. You can see this was a factory building earlier. On one side of the factory building, there was a train line, and the other side, there was a metro line and a highway. That did not allow us to kind of break the building. If we broken the building, we would have to lose the plinth area and that was pretty large. And when we designed this building for the Forbes Marshall, we said like, how about we retain the wall, the columns, the slabs, and the plinth so that we can build over it. So what we did is that like we kind of changed the facades and all the systems, and then we went into what is called as reuse and readaptable mode. This is how the building looked in 1950s. It was a factory, and over the time it actually like got added up. This was the original factory building, and then all these colors are different editions at different decades. This is what was given to us, and that resulted in a patchy build form. So you can see this was the building. It was almost 75 years, and if we demolished, we would have lost on the plinth area, which we did not want to lose. So we converted this old factory into a new office space for about 300 people to sit and work over there. So this is how the factory looked. Various kind of materials were used over the time. It aged and it grew. This is how the factory was. Weakened structure. The facade was not consistent. So we needed to kind of integrate the whole different patches of the building by integrating the facade. So we changed the factory building into a corporate office for 300 employees. It was modernized. And we created a louvered facade that was both functional and sustainable. And we revived it, we readapted it, and reused it. So in short, I can't explain all this in such a little time that we have got. What I'm going to show is that like this was the building which was given to us. I mean, this is what the building which we made from what was given to us, by having an extra floor on the top and by having a light roof structure. We did a lot of auditing, and we found some of the columns were very weak. We needed to kind of retrofit the columns. Like you can see, these were all like retrofitted columns to hold greater strengths. Strengthening the columns. Then we incorporated skylights into the new ceiling. And then we used radiant cooling in the floors, which greatly reduces the load on the air conditioning. So that reduces the electricity consumption, thereby the economic sense. So an office space, which was open office space, was created out of this factory. And this was one of the buildings out of all the 5 buildings that were surrounding it. So now we are in a manner, we are integrating all the other buildings also, and thereby expanding it. So doing this particular project, we found out that like it was almost similar to an open heart surgery, where the person is alive and you're trying to kind of attend to a heart that was damaged. So we were building this entire factory, converting the factory into a corporate office while they were still working over there. So it was not the operations were not shut down for the factory. So this is the building which came out eventually. These are the images, how it looks now. A lot of light coming into it. Skylights opened up, and this is how it was. And it became this. So you can see the difference. This is how it was, and this is what we made. This is how it was, and this is how we kind of included passive cooling, radiant cooling, and then strengthened the columns. You can see the columns which were strengthened were also made to look beautiful, and they were exposed to show that we have strengthened, and they are now sculptural part of this workspace. So this is how it became. That's it. So where is my, can you put my face? Yeah. So in short, what I was talking about is like, I was purposefully moving out with like the landscape sustainability, or let's say the ecological sustainability, to introduce 2 new words to my audience. One was cultural sustainability in the form of Suzlon, where we all already are like, moving out from building what are called Indian modern buildings, and also what is called economic sustainability, where we are talking about instead of building like, demolishing and building something new. Especially in India, when we're working at like scales which are like uh, $25 per square foot, as against the rest of the world, which is building at like, maybe like 10 times more that per square foot. So we have to be very careful when we are working in Indian conditions. So this is all that I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Architect Ramprasad, and thank you once again, Architect Leonard. Both your presentations offered powerful ideas rooted in empathy and ecology. Thank you so much once again. All right, let's explore a few deeper threads in conversation before we move on to the Q&A session. So I would like to start with Architect Leonard. Your work integrates nature into dense cityscapes. What's the biggest mindset shift we need when designing public landscapes?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Well, it's a question that I've alluded to in my presentation, in that we cannot design landscapes without including nature. For the longest time, we have designed cities as machines without consideration to the environment or nature. We have taken the tabula rasa approach where we think that everything is a green slate. But in reality, there is an environment, there's topography, there's weather, there's water movement, and we need you need to take that into consideration if you want to have a sustainable design. Instead of working against it, against natural systems, we need to learn to work with nature, right? Giving them a space for movement, even the way water moves through the environment, right? So my one advice is look at what's on site and work with what's on site.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, moving, let's take one more question with Architect Ramprasad. So your projects often feel very spiritual. So how do you balance emotional resonance with functionality?
That is our USP.
Yes, I'm sure.
See, when we are building any project, first, I think we greatly try to understand, like, can our buildings be timeless? Are we building for the season or are we building for eternity?
Yeah.
Because we very clearly believe that like architecture is very clearly linked to our history, and we should learn from history. When you learn from history, the spirituality kind of draws in always. And so we study a lot. We try to understand like what are the elements that we can borrow from the past, adapt for the present, and make sure that they kind of survive into the future. And I think all buildings must be spiritual, because buildings are the places where you modify your behavior.
Yes.
And your buildings must actually inculcate in the people who are occupying that, like, I have come to an important space. I have come to a sacred space. Just like when you go to a temple, you modify your behavior. You no longer use bad language. You are behaving yourself. So if a building can do that, if it can bring in spirituality, if it can modify your emotions, if it can elevate your mundane life, I think you have done what is called a timeless building.
Thank you. Thank you for such a thoughtful answer. All right, we'll have to move ahead, and there's a very interesting segment, and that is we have two very interesting poll questions. So what will happen is I'm going to ask one poll question, and then I will have 4 options to it. Request all our audience members to quickly vote. We will take a break of about 30 seconds. In that time, you can quickly vote on the whichever option you feel is the best and the right one. So without further ado, let's begin the first poll question. The question is, what's the most important factor in designing with nature? I repeat, what's the most important factor in designing with nature? And the options are integrating water systems, enhancing biodiversity, community participation, and long-term climate resilience. So, all right, 30 seconds starts now. Quickly, if I can request our audience members to quickly vote for the right and the best answer that fits according to them is the right. 30 seconds.
Host and panelists cannot vote. Okay.
20 seconds more. Quickly, if I can request our audience members to quickly vote for this very, very interesting and a very pertinent question, and that is, what's the most important factor in designing with nature, as we spoke a lot about nature in today's session. All right, 10 seconds to go. Quickly, all the audience members, request you to kindly. All right, we have the results in front of us, and the result is the audience members have voted the most for the last option, and that is the long-term climate resilience. And I must say that this is quite a responsible answer. Thank you very, very much. All right, let's move on to another exciting segment, and that is the audience questions. I'm sure our audience members are very excited to actually know the answers. We have received a lot of questions, but I have to say this in advance that the time not being on our side, we'll have to quickly take 1-2 questions. So quickly, I will ask the question one by one. And the first question is to architect Leonardo. And just 1 second. So yes. Yeah, it's by architect Manan Desai. He says, when planting trees in a building structure, how is the rooting problem solved? Big trees have dense root systems which could likely penetrate the floor.
Okay. Thanks for the question. Very pertinent question. So when you're designing landscape for roofs, high-rise greenery, you take a few things into consideration. First off, the requirements, the structure. So you design the structure so that there's no root penetration. There's products out there in the market like root barriers that prevent root penetration. And you got waterproof ceiling, and you have several layers of protection typically. And then there's also what kind of species you pick, right? You would pick those species with not deep tap roots, right? You've got a finer spreading roots. So you really do need to understand the plant species and their growth habits, right? And where to plant them.
Lovely. Thank you so much. All right, the next question is for Ramprasad sir. It says, what role can architects and planners play in restoring lost ecosystems within cityscapes?
What role can architects play? I think they can play the role of, I think, the torch bearers, I would say, like, because they understand what would be lost greatly if we don't integrate nature in the built form. As you can see, it's like, architects do have a better understanding of what built environment can do to our space, like all our urban landscapes. If you look at it today, they are so challenged. To a great extent, I would say, like, the problem has been created by us. So if we can understand right at the alphabetical level that like we should build, considering that like we must respect nature, we should incorporate nature, and we should celebrate nature. As I said in the very beginning of my talk, that like building with nature is like having good manners. So I would say, like, all architects, please have good manners.
I really like that point when you started your presentation with that. So absolutely well said. Next up, quickly take another question for architect Leonard. He says, how has your landscape experience helped you in city making?
Tremendously, to put it succinctly, simply because city making is not just a collection of buildings, right? It involves entire systems, city systems, ecosystems, right? Climatic zones, ecological conditions. So the landscape profession allows us to understand this network relationship at a regional scale. This is one discipline where we train to understand the impact of water, of wind, of rain, of the sea rise, and being able to complement how they affect each other allows us to design better cities, especially climate resilient cities.
Yes. All right. We'll take one last question for Ramprasad sir. It says, how do you initiate collaboration across disciplines when designing with nature?
Oh, I think I would want like unlike the present style of working in architecture where the client comes to the architect and almost the landscape architect comes towards the end when there is neither money nor scope. I think right in the beginning itself, if the client and the architect's team incorporates landscape architect, ecology specialist, green consultants, I think we will greatly come out with a product which I would say like will be pretty well integrated, and that is how it should be. I think we should learn from Singapore because they always have all the consultants on board right in the beginning itself because everybody integrates rather than it's a patchy work which almost like becomes very difficult later on to integrate. An integrated project rhymes like music there.
And I'm sure everybody in the audience is very keenly listening to this answer. They will reach out. All right. So like I mentioned that the time is not on our side. So these questions will be emailed to both of you so that in case whenever you have the time, you can answer them. Apologies for that. And now, once again, thank you very, very much for doing this for us. I'm sure we had a great time, and I'm sure the audience members are taking a lot of takeaways with this wonderful session. So before we close, one last question to both of you. Any takeaway that you would want to quickly share with all of us so that the audience can take back with them?
Leonard, you first.
All right, thank you. Yeah, well, I'm actually encouraged by how many architects are here, eager to learn new knowledge. I think it is a good sign for India, and your quickly developing country that that people are interested to incorporate the latest knowledge, and seeing the way how India has developed every time I visit it, it is amazing, and I can't wait to see how India will look 5-10 years from now.
Thank you. So
I would say that the takeaway for all your audience, including me, is in your topic itself, design with nature and planning for planet and people. So as I told that I want to expand the sustainability aspect, not just limited to environment, but to culture as well as economy. So there should be something which is called cultural sustainability as well as an economic sustainability. Because why cultural sustainability is important is that today, if you look at like buildings in Shanghai, Mumbai, or Dubai, they all look the same. We need to kind of bring in what is called the cultural nuances, the place where it is built. That's very important. This is something which we learned when we were working in Bhutan, when we were designing the buildings over there. Economic sustainability is also very important. We are not very rich country. And there are many countries which are poorer than us, like in Africa and in Central Asia and in other parts of the world. India has to give solutions which are like minimal, but also effective, and for the larger global South, where they are looking at like solutions from a country which has many birth pangs in coming out of their age-old traditions into the modern life. So I think India can lend solutions of these two sustainability topics, which I call cultural sustainability as well as economic sustainability.
to sum it up, I think having an expansive heart and an expansive mind, and then actually going all out to be absolutely sustainable. Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right, that brings us to the end of this wonderful VC Live session. Thank you so much to our incredible speakers and to all of you in the audience for joining in. This conversation has reminded us that great design doesn't just shape buildings. It shapes how we breathe, belong, and thrive in our environment. Until next time, stay curious and keep designing with purpose. We will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.
Thrusters. Check. Door lock check.
डोर लॉक घर का डोर लॉक किया था या भूल गया घर का लॉक फटाफट से चेक करके आऊं क्या
ले आइए गोदरेज IoT 9 डिजिटल लॉक 9 सिक्योर एक्सेस मोड्स ऑटोमेटिक लॉकिंग ट्रिपल बोल्ट और कई एडवांस फीचर्स अब घर के अंदर या बाहर रहो बेफिक्र
घर जाते ही गोदरेज डिजिटल लॉक लगवाऊंगा
Welcome to the Godrej Value Co-Creators Club, where innovation meets collaboration. GVCC is a unique platform for architects and interior designers to merge their creative visions with our innovative product offerings. We aim to cultivate a network of thought leaders, driving innovation and excellence in the industry. Celebrate your achievements with our GV's awards, recognizing innovative projects across various verticals. Join our community through exhibition visits and masterclasses to stay updated on the latest trends and technologies. Enjoy exclusive access to new products, special discounts, and tours of our Mumbai and Goa plants. Join the Godrej Value Co-Creators Club today. Be part of a community that values innovation, collaboration, and sustainability.